Hello there. It's there. Brand new podcast for you to enjoy about all things Irish sport. But given my background, George Hamilton, football commentator, it'll start and probably be a bit football heavy. So I hope that brings you along. It's a podcast presented by Connor Phillips.
And George Hamilton, as you just heard. Hello, how are you? And this is number one. This is the first in a series of podcasts, and let us give you a bit of an insight as to what's going to happen, right? So at the start of the week, every Tuesday, you'll hear myself and George, like in this episode, we'll kind of be waxing lyrical about all things Irish sport. Would that be fair?
I think so. And the emphasis on the lyrical, because it's positive. What we're doing is positive. It's looking back, looking forward, thinking about things, thinking about people and talking maybe about the issues of the day as well, without being too controversial, because there's plenty of that out there.
Yeah, there is. And what we'll do on a Thursday, this is what we're really excited about. Even though I know you kind of love sitting here listening to me and George, but the Thursday episode is something a bit special. We have been working on this for a long time.
Oh, yes.
Yeah, not only to download this episode, subscribe, download this episode every Tuesday, but the Thursday episode, George, give us an insight as to how they've gone so far.
It has been a wonderful journey, meeting a wonderful selection of people from the annals of Irish sport. If you think back on the big occasions that there have been, I've been very, very lucky over 40 odd years to be at very many of them. But I'm often asked, what is the greatest moment that you've been involved in? And of course, the nation held its breath, and that was huge. But I always say the first time is the best time. And the first time really was Ray Houghton's header in Stuttgart. And of course, it's there, has as its principal guest on one of our episodes, the great Ray Houghton himself.
Yeah, Ray Houghton, we're going to put that out as first guest, first episode this Thursday. So if you subscribe to this now, that'll automatically jump into wherever you get your podcasts. And we've been calling it a twofer because Ray Houghton is a 2-for-1, right? He's maybe a 3-for-1. First of all, you've got his career, and then you've got his two big moments.
Yeah, there's Stuttgart, of course, which opened the door to everything that followed. And then there was Italia 90, of course. That was, I suppose, Packy Bonner and David O'Leary's time. You might be surprised to hear we've Packy Bonner coming along too. Then 1994, as you say, the twofer. There was that moment in Giant Stadium when I had a co-commentator for one of the first times in the commentary box. It was Niall Quinn, of all people, who should actually have been on the pitch, but he was injured. So he, at 6'4", was beside me at 5'6", squeezed into this typical American commentary box, which is glass all around. And if you recall, if you're old enough to recall the game in Giant Stadium, it was high summer in the United States. It was very, very hot. And you can imagine Niall Quinn was still 6'4", but he was a bit slimmer than he was when he went in at the end of the match, because the heat was just unbelievable. And that's one of the things I remember, not least the heat, but also what made it hot for us, of course, was Ray Houghton's early goal, and then the masterful performance of Packy Bonner again, but most of all, Paul McGrath. So, there's all of that to look back upon and savor. And boy, are there some stories to tell. Like, we won't give the game away, but yeah. Ray has some insights that you would not know. Just think of the goal celebration in New Jersey that day and Ray's somersault. Enough said.
The lovely thing about this podcast so far is if you have taken the opportunity to listen to it, well, you have, because it's the only way you're listening to this right now, you're already hearing George's voice slightly out of context, right? And George, it is slightly out of context because you conversational is very weird for the rest of us, and you don't realize this here. And the first time I met George, I sat down and had a chat with him, and I was just staring into his eyes. I was lovingly staring into his eyes, because I'm used to him creating the colour. I'm used to the nation hold its breath. I'm listening to the yip when Packy Bonner made that save. But you actually say words, and you're a very articulate, erudite presenter as well. And this is something we're going to see in this podcast.
Yeah, but I do love an old natter. And it's great when what you're talking about is something you love, and when it's something that you've been peripherally involved in as well, that you can look back with people who have fond memories of it too. I mentioned moments ago about the controversy. Of course, there will be controversy to be discussed, but it's nice. I mean, I have an alter ego who sits at a mixing desk and puts out classical music on RTE Lyric FM, and on Lyric they say RTE Lyric FM, where life sounds better. And, I think that's what we're about as well on the It's There podcast, that we want to make sports sound better as well. We don't want to delve into all the nastiness that there is around sport. And because sport has become so financially huge, well, controversy follows the money, doesn't it? So we won't be doing that. I don't think, Connor. We might.
No,
You might, maybe.
we probably won't say VAR much on this show. It's a positive platform, but who knows where it's
That's
going to
it.
go.
Positive platform. Positive platform. Yeah.
Yeah, let
Lyric is where life
RTE
sounds better.
have that.
Yeah.
This is not
Yeah.
affiliated with RTE in any way.
Yeah.
The
No, no,
positive
no, no, no.
platform.
That's it. That's it. I like that. So Lyric FM is where life sounds better. It's there is a positive platform. Good.
It
Good.
is.
And we didn't think that up in advance.
No, we didn't. Some of the other guests now. Let me give you an insight as to what this was like. Right, we have got like George has mentioned Ray Houghton there, right? He's mentioned Packy Bonner's going to be on the show. Kevin Kilban's going to be on the show. Mick McCarthy is going to be on the show. Kevin Doyle's going to be on the show. John Aldridge is going to be on the show. We've got commentary legends like Clive Tilsley and Conor McNamara. They're going to be on the show as well. And George, you'll not recognize this here. When we asked these people to do this podcast, there wasn't a moment's hesitation from any of them. I mean, not a moment. It was a quick email or a text or a WhatsApp through an intermediary or somebody who knew somebody. And nobody knows who I am, right? For those of you who don't know me, my name's Connor Phillips. I'm a presenter with the BBC normally, and with BBC Northern Ireland, BBC Radio 5 Live, BBC Radio 2. But my position in the pantheon of Irish sport does not exist. But the minute I put your name into the text or the WhatsApp or the email, it was an automatic, oh, it's for George. Yes. How does that make you feel?
That makes me feel wonderful. And thank you so much for doing it. I mean, that you talked about the first time we met. Yeah, the conversation that we had. And when you came up with the idea that this might be a good idea, I thought that is a fabulous thought, because it offered me the opportunity to share with an enthusiast, to share with the fan, because we do this. What I do is done for the people who are watching and listening. So they are the ones who get to share the experience. So you are that person. You are so into sport. And I have now got somebody that I can share what I had from the occasion with what you had from the occasion. And by extension, with everybody else who was involved, however they were involved in the occasion. So yeah, it makes me feel great that I've had the opportunity. And yet, it took in a lot of time, and before Jack Charlton came along, there had been so many near misses. There had been the Owen Hand era, there had been the John Giles era, and it just seemed like it was never going to happen. And then one night in Bulgaria, Gary Mackay scored a goal for Scotland, and that changed everything, because it put Ireland into a tournament for the very first time, and they rose to the occasion magnificently. Okay, they were eliminated, but it was a small tournament. It was an 8-team tournament, and the other two teams, apart from England, whom Ireland beat memorably in Stuttgart, the other two teams in that group were the Soviet Union and the Netherlands. And who contested the final of the European Championship that year? The Soviet Union and the Netherlands. So all of a sudden, thanks to a quirk of circumstance, when Ireland were in an outnumbered team group in qualifying and didn't have a match on the last night, and Scotland did the big favour, that all of a sudden Ireland were on the stage. And it kind of took people by surprise, this tournament. Oh, goodness, we're there. A lot of people, maybe who would have gone had they thought about it, were thinking about it too late, because it kind of crept up on fans. But they weren't going to make that mistake in Italia 90. And I'll never forget seeing the crowds of Irish assembled in green shirts. This had never happened before. It happened in a big way in Stuttgart, okay, because there were those who got there, but it happened in an even bigger way in the World Cup. And that was sensational. And I remember being on the balcony of the hotel in Cagliari where the match against England in Italia 90 took place. And the fans were down below, and they were corralled by the Italian police. And it was like, I don't know, it looked like a football stadium, even though it was a town square, because on one side, behind one goal, so to speak, it was all green. And on the other side, behind the other goal, so to speak, it was all white. And it was just amazing. And Tom Flanagan, my wingman on that trip, floor manager in RTE at the time, we just stood on the balcony looking at this thing. This is unbelievable. All these Irish people in this situation was absolutely magnificent.
Yeah, we're a couple of minutes in, and you've already had your first George Hamilton story. Those George Hamilton stories crop up right throughout this podcast, and I mean that in the best possible way. We will find out the stories that you didn't know, that I didn't know, that George had forgotten until the microphone is on during it's there, and it's look, this is going to be fun. This is something that specifically because of what is going to happen over the next month, the build up to the playoff in the
Oh,
Czech
yes.
Republic. It's kind of going to be important to look back in order for us to look forward.
I know it is because we now find ourselves in a situation that we've been in before. And sometimes it hasn't been what we would have wished. And I'm thinking of Thierry Henry. Let's not think about controversy, eh? But I'm thinking of a
It's
happier.
okay to point out historical controversy, I think.
I'm thinking of another trip which was much more successful and was very, very interesting, as you can imagine. The trip to Tehran in 2001 that secured qualification for 2002 Korea and Japan. And that memorable World Cup where Ireland, what's the word? They put themselves again right at the center of affairs, and it was only a penalty shootout that put them out of that World Cup. And they had a magnificent victory over Saudi Arabia. They also scored the only goal through Robbie Keane that Germany conceded on the way to the final against Brazil. You know, that was the level that Ireland were operating at. But to get there, there was something equivalent to what's coming down the track, this match against the Czechs, which we all hope will lead to the match against whoever
Yeah.
whoever wins the other side of that.
Well, let's let's
So
let's let's get into it if we can, because we're going to use this early in the week show to kind of dig into the things that are happening, the things that are people are saying, specifically over the next month, because the next month is the full lead up to what's going to be happening in the Czech Republic. So, George, let me get your opinion on this. Evan Ferguson emerges as a doubt for the World Cup playoff as he returns to Brighton for injury assessment. He looked so sharp his first 15 minutes in a Roma jersey. He played that friendly out there. I think he scored 4 goals. I think he was kind of
yeah,
left foot, right foot, long
mm-hmm.
distance, tap ins. And we
Yeah.
all went, oh, here we go, here we go. Imagine having Evan Ferguson and an informed Troy Parrott.
Oh, I know. And then against Celtic, you know, in the Europa League, uh, he has been so unfortunate with injury. Just when it seemed that everything was going right, and then it's how thin is the tightrope really that you walk as a top player. I mean, if Troy Parrott was still at Spurs, would we be talking about Troy Parrott? You know, but because he went to another league where maybe the pressure isn't just as great, he was able to express himself, to play in a way that drew attention to him, to turn him into a transfer target in the window. So successful was he being. And then, of course, what he achieved in Budapest, which is the stuff of dreams, a once in a lifetime kind of moment for a player. To be able to turn a match around, but not only turn the match around, do it by scoring a hat trick. I mean, it's quite incredible. So we're very fortunate to have Troy Parrott. It would be great if Evan Ferguson were fit, but he has had such an unfortunate sequence of events that, you know, and this is the reality of it. I mean, it's a bit like the Olympic Games where they say, you know, you may be the greatest middle distance runner in the world, but if you don't run the race on the day, you're not the Olympic champion. And it all comes down to the day and who's available. And you can't bemoan it. You just have to get on with it, whatever it is that you've got. But I think they're in a good place after Hungary, particularly because it all came out right in the end. And if you think how it began, you know, with the draw at home against Hungary and then the defeat against Armenia, you know, after those two matches,
Yeah.
you'd have given your eye teeth to be in this position right now.
Yeah,
And yet,
yeah. I think I was down
yet
at
we are.
the Portugal match, and there was the full the eyes of everybody going, I cannot believe we're in this position comparatively to what we were and to where we were. Now, this is the problem here, right? Ireland have had incredible strikers, right? They've had the Robbie Keanes, John Aldridge, Frank Stapleton, I could go on, right? But they also have had strikers who pick up injuries, and no, I don't want to put fear into anybody. So, but what happens if anything happens to Troy Parrott at this stage? Okay, and we know he
Mm.
is flying in
Yeah.
his league at the moment, right? I think let me see, just check the absolute 100% facts here. I sent you this as an email last night, just to check on Troy Parrott, 23rd club goal this season. There's a lot of pressure on him, obviously, with AZ Alkmaar. Can we just have him back now? Can we just have him for a month if that's
Yes,
okay?
yes,
Just
yes,
wrap
yes.
him up in cotton wool, and you know those little
Gentle
balls that
training sessions.
do you know the little
Laps of the pitch.
balls
Yeah.
that you get in the boxes that are arrive from Amazon, the wee poppy box
Oh
balls?
yes, yes, yeah.
Surround them with
Wrap them in
those.
those. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. I know, but again, as I say, it's you just have to take it as it comes, and you can't be trying to protect yourself because you know you have a big game coming around the corner. You've got to treat every game with respect, and play your normal game, because it's when you're going off at half cock is when you get hurt. I think Troy Parrott above anybody else will know that. It'll be in the back of his mind that this big day is coming up, but at the same time, he's still got to do the business for his team.
There's a gentleman called Pavel Sulk, and forgive me, Pavel, if you're listening, I've got your name wrong there. He
Schultz,
is it
Schultz,
Schulch?
Schultz.
Sure. See,
It
this is
goes.
why you've got me, the bog standard broadcaster, who does a bit of talky stuff for a living, and then you have the expert there. So give us it again.
Schultz. It's like a German name, Schultz. It's the S at the front of it. It has got a little hat on, so that makes it a sh. And in the Czech language, the C, like many Slavic languages, is pronounced as a ts. Ts. So you've got Schultz. Schultz.
So
That's the man.
the aforementioned Mr. Schultz, thank you very much, George Hamilton.
Very good.
Um,
Very good. Very good.
a versatile
Excellent.
attacker who has played as a false nine. He plays as a central attacking midfielder. He plays off the right. He's had a great season for Lyon, scoring 10 goals in 21 Ligue 1 appearances. Ligue 1,
Yeah.
was that right?
Oh, I like that. Yeah.
Okay. Uh, so he was taken off in the 3-1 defeat against Salzburg over the weekend. So he would be one of those players that would kind of, I suppose, occupy the headspace for this Czechia team moving forward.
Yeah.
So you don't want to wish ill on anybody, but you're kind of watching
No.
those going, well, it would be okay if that didn't clear up
Yeah.
just straight away.
Yeah. Yeah. But they always have good players. I mean, you think of Pavel Nedved, who was such a star for Juventus over the years. There have always been star men playing for the Czech Republic, but right through the history of football. They've produced players who've gone on, a lot of them in Germany, but in modern times in Italy has been a place that they've gone. And I think we've got to accept that when you get to this level, you are going to meet good players. But hey, there were good players in that Hungarian team, weren't they? Captained by Szoboszlai, Premier League players. So you can't kind of say, oh my goodness, this team has got this guy in who's going to do us damage. He might, but again, he might not. And
Yeah.
dare I suggest it? I just quote something Gary Breen said to me. I've been working with Gary Breen for Premier Sports on the Europa League, and we did the Celtic game recently, and it was actually only last week. And poor old Kasper Schmeichel had been a mare. Kasper Schmeichel is 39. And Gary was saying, you may be the fittest 39-year-old in the world, but the old little reaction things aren't quite what they were. And it's harder maybe for a goalkeeper to get down the way he used to. And he referred to one of the goals that Schmeichel let in, which there was a similar save at the similar end, the second half. Schmeichel had conceded the goal at the west end of Celtic Park in the first half. And then the goalkeeper for Stuttgart, the guy from Nübel on loan from Bayern Munich, made a save like Schmeichel should have made the save. Down smartly, big hand on it, and it was no goal. Schmeichel flapped at it, tried to flick it out of the way, which was a strange thing to do. And all of this presented Gary with a thought at the end of the game. He said, wouldn't it be great? They beat the Czechs, and then we played Denmark and Schmeichel's in goal.
And the very strange juxtaposition that exists, that so many Irish fans are Celtic fans,
Yeah,
and
yeah, yeah,
so many Irish fans want Celtic to do well and want Kasper Schmeichel to do well, but at the same
yeah.
time, you know,
He's the
if he's in a, let's just call it a non-rich vein of form,
yeah,
and then he happens to play against Ireland in said form, that's
yeah.
not the worst thing in the world.
And can we think back to maybe the Hampden Park, Scotland getting to the World Cup for the first time since 1998 with a win over said Denmark? And how did the final goal come? Well, I think it was the final goal. Anyway, Schmeichel's kind of nearly on the halfway line. I can't remember now who it was, but he saw where Schmeichel was. And then this awful image, which I'm sure Kasper Schmeichel would hate to be recalling, of him trying to scamper back as the ball is sailing through the air, half the length of the pitch, over half the length of the pitch, into the empty net.
Was it
Denmark.
was it Lyndon Dykes?
Are you? I can't remember. I was a fan, football fan, watching this match with my Scottish hat on because I have or had. She's no longer with us, a Scottish grandmother. So if it's not Ireland, I'm very happy to cheer for Scotland and revert back to 1987 and Gary Mackay. You know, I'm very happy to cheer for Scotland. And they, like, I think back to my first World Cup and in Argentina in '78, Scotland were in the group. And I got to commentate on that amazing goal. You have to be quite old to remember this. Archie Gemmell slaloming through the Dutch defence to score the goal in Mendoza. So I have a soft spot for the Scots. So I wasn't Kasper Schmeichel's fan that night. And when that was happening in the final moments of that qualifying game, I wanted Scotland to get in the World Cup, of course. And for it to happen the way it did, you know, it all augurs well if it is Ireland, Denmark on the Sunday.
Kenny McLean, he was the one who scored from the halfway line with Schmeichel being out of his net. Right, so would you believe that is the first half of the first episode of It's There Already Done? We're going to take a quick break here and we're coming back now. What we're going to do, we hope, is in the second part, in the Tuesday episode, we will give you the opportunity to ask any questions you want to ask, right? And with a breadth of experience, you can send us whatever questions you want. Now, we're up on every social media platform. In fact, we're up on X/Twitter, we're up on Instagram, and we're also on Facebook. You can go and find us there. And you can just pose a question at any stage, or you can email the question to us. It's there at fiacar.com, FIOCAR. It's there at fiacar.com. And we will welcome your questions, George. We've had questions. Just for you. And what we sneaky one for me as well. Questions from the listening public. You're listening to episode 1 of a brand new podcast with George Hamilton
and Connor Phillips. It's there.
Welcome back. The second half is now officially underway. We've had some oranges at halftime. George has gone and got electrolytes, which he was telling me all about during that break there. And we're ready to go. It's there with George Hamilton.
And Connor Phillips. Yes, it's there. It's a brand new podcast, and we're reflecting on Irish sport in the present, in the past, into the future.
It's been quite football heavy, but listen, we're gonna touch on other bits and pieces. George, you've been involved in non-football brilliance. Just give us a little list of that, because it will make its way into the podcast, hopefully all things going well. And if we dig down into what you have been involved with, where the ball isn't round, it's as incredible as the round ball stuff.
Yeah, it's funny because when I was starting off all those years ago in Belfast with the BBC, and I did the audition, and they called me for the audition. They said, "We need you to do a match report, but please don't do football because we're inundated with football people." And I thought, I've fallen at the first fence here because I can't do what I want to do, which is football. But then I thought, well, they're opening the door to me that I might get in. They've given me an audition. So what do I know? Well, I'd played rugby at school because it was a rugby school. So that I'll do a rugby match. And when I started, things fell into place. People moved around, didn't want to do it anymore because it was a part-time thing. Their life outside was too busy. Suddenly there was the opportunity for this new guy, this whippersnapper student fella, who's passed his audition on rugby, to do rugby. And so I got my first commentary assignments on rugby. My first commentary game was a radio commentary for BBC in Belfast on Ireland, Scotland in 1974 at Lansdowne Road. They won 9-6. And the days back then, Bill McBride was the captain of the Ireland team, commentated in his one and only try for Ireland, funny enough, which was a jump, a catch, and a dive over the line from a line out in the far left-hand corner as you looked on the television pictures. But that day, Ireland beat Scotland 9-6. They won it with a penalty. And the penalty was converted by a wing forward by the name of Stuart McKinney, played for Dungannon in the Ulster Senior League. Now, you think of what happens now. You think of Ireland under Johnny Sexton, and then the kind of debate we're having now, is it Prendergast or is it Crowley or is it maybe one of the Burns, at number 10. But in the Johnny Sexton era, can you imagine the captain of the team being told by his wing forward, hey, Willie John, I'm feeling good about this. I took a penalty against North of Ireland last week and it went over. I fancy myself for this. Can you imagine the kicker in a 2026 Ireland team saying, but what he'd say to the wing forward who said that to the captain? Anyway, Bill McBride said, fair enough, up you go. And Stuart McKinney, the wing forward, converted the penalty that won the game for Ireland 9-6. And then as we spool through, while I got my chance to get into football, and that became the dominant aspect of my working life, I still did some rugby. And one of my fondest rugby memories is being in Paris when a new young centre, Brian O'Driscoll, who moved Jerry Thornley, the Irish Times rugby correspondent, to write in his preview of the game at the Stade de France that for once we were going to Paris. We hadn't won there since the 70s, and we're now in the noughties. For once, we're going to Paris, the hope of actually achieving something. And the main reason, the one and only reason for that, is the presence in the team of Brian O'Driscoll. And what did Brian O'Driscoll do on that day? He scored a hat-trick, 3 tries against the French, and Ireland won. And there's a lovely story I can tell you about the late Tommy Gorman, who was at that time RTE's Europe correspondent. And Tommy was a great man for sports. So he'd leave his Brussels base when there was a big game on, and he'd come with his camera crew to wherever the big game was. And this was Paris. Tommy'd come from Brussels to Paris for the match. So the game is over, and I'm going down into the bowels of the Stade de France to do the interviews after the game, because that in those days we didn't have the online or the on-pitch presence that we would have now at an Ireland away game. So I'm going down to do the interviews in the tunnel, and I'm passing through the corridor with the dressing rooms on either side. And Tommy Gorman is outside the door of the Irish dressing room, and he's, come in here. Now, Tommy was a news reporter. Sports reporters would never cross the threshold of a dressing room without being asked, because that is the holy of holies. You don't do that. And I said to Tommy, I can't go in there. And Tommy said, oh, you must. This is a day they will remember for the rest of their lives, and they'll be watching the video, and it'll be your voice on the video. You must go in. And I went in, and you know what? It was wonderful, because it was exactly as Tommy had said. I just sauntered in unannounced, not quite sure what was going to happen. And they all turned around, hey, and they're in the middle of all this celebration. And suddenly it was almost like I played in the match. It was sensational. It was one of my favorite moments.
Did you walk up to O'Driscoll and say, like,
yeah,
that was me? By the way,
yeah, I don't know.
We got that. We got it on camera.
Yeah, you have it in one. It was just wonderful and never to be forgotten. And all because the late Tommy Gorman, just he was thinking outside the box. I would have walked past the door saying, God, it must be great in there. But he was saying, no, get in there, get in the middle of it.
Yeah. So athletics, I'm sure, as well.
Oh, yes.
Talk to me about, just very quickly, athletics and the golden experience that you had doing the Olympics. And then I'm going to bring Chat GPT into this a little bit, right? And just see how reliable it is, right? So Olympics-wise, you and Sonia O'Sullivan have a great relationship, don't you?
Yeah. Unfortunately, I never got to do a Sonia O'Sullivan gold at the Olympic Games, but I did get to do a gold medal in Gothenburg in 1995 when Sonia won the World Championship. And that was a great moment, a really wonderful moment for Sonia. And it kind of crowned her career, even though it was early in her career. Because I remember meeting her for the first time in Split. The European Championships were on in Split in 1990 in Croatia, and Sonia was there, but she wasn't competing, or if she was competing, she certainly wasn't frontline. But it was one of those moments where they're saying, a bit like the late Fran Fields of Finn Harp said about Shay Given, we have a goalkeeper here who is going to be great, and he was only a kid, and nobody was paying any attention, but Fran Fields was right. And whoever it was saying the same about Sonia was absolutely right. And who could forget the dice she had in the finishing straight in Sydney with Szabo, the Gabriela Szabo, the Romanian, where Szabo just held her off. And if there was glory in that, finishing second, it was there because she gave it everything. And it was just one of those where she came up slightly short, but she was still an Olympic medalist, and there are not many can say that.
No, you're absolutely right there. And those who are Olympic medalists, I love watching the Olympics. Like, we're not far, obviously the Winter Olympics is closed there in the last couple of days, and I adored it. Like, I was watching curling, I haven't a clue what's happening. I was watching the snowboarding, the thing where they're going down the middle of, and they're doing flippy upside
Yes.
downs, and I'm going like, and one commentator's going, wasn't that amazing? And the other one's saying like, oh, the back of the board kicked out a bit. And I'm like, I can just
Yeah.
about get out of the car to get into work.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? How
Yeah.
is that not the absolute superhero that people are? But from an Olympic Games perspective, we've become very respectful of the rowing community in the
Oh,
last
goodness
sort
me.
of
Yes. Yeah.
generation, and you had the joys and the prowess of doing that as well.
Yeah. It was O'Donovan and McCarthy, the boys, amazing. I was lucky because rowing, the prominence of Cork rowing was coming to the fore, and the head of sport at the time was Ryle Nugent, who's now the in charge at Premier Sports. But a great vision to kind of get us involved, the RT Sports Department, that is, in covering the rowing and giving it prominence. And so I was doing world championships and things, and getting to know rowing. I had no background in rowing at all, but it's a wonderful sport, and if you give it your full attention, it will repay you in spades. It's really, really an important uh, sport to devote, to give attention to, because it's, as I say, it rewards you, and it's so dramatic, and covering it as a commentator, there are so many little bits and pieces that you can feed off, the various clocks that are on the screen and all of that. And you can work out too by watching crews in action as to where the strong point is. It may sound simplistic, but when it clicks in a commentary, you feel you've got a handle on it properly. That who's strong at the start, who's strong in the middle, and have they got it at the end? And this was our guys' thing. They had it at the end. So you must not be despondent if they are not bang out in front at the first 200, 400, 500 meters, and it's maybe the Germans or whoever are setting the pace. Never fear. These boys are going to come through, Fenton and Paul. And sure enough, they did. And you know what that did? After all those years, it afforded me the opportunity. They did it, but it afforded me the opportunity for the first time in 11 Olympic Games to call home an Irish gold medal.
No
Astonishing.
way. That
Yeah.
was your
Yeah.
first one, your first
First
Irish.
Irish gold medal. Yeah. Because you think I use the example of Michael Carruth in Barcelona. I was in Barcelona principally as a track and field commentator. So I'm up at the Montjuic at the Olympic Stadium, and Michael Carruth is down at the boxing arena, and he's winning his gold medal. And I'm only hearing this like second and third hand, because there isn't the feat of the boxing at the athletics, and it's only coming to me through back in Dublin who are telling me in my ear about Carruth. So there's an. Sorry, that's netted, isn't it? Getting excited.
George just knocked over his microphone. Was that Jimmy McGee or Bill Neely?
Jimmy McGee. Yeah, I was getting excited about Michael Carruth there, because that was an Irish gold medal, and I was several miles away on a hilltop in a stadium hearing about it second or third hand. But here I was actually with the boys on the race lanes in Tokyo, actually winning the gold medal, and I got the opportunity to do it.
Well, look, I keep saying this. If you want to send us any questions, you can look at any of our social media platforms, stick any questions in there. You can email us. It's there at fiacar.com. Now, I've gone on and had a wee chat with Chat GPT here, and you've mentioned the fact that you've done. Did you mention 11 Olympic Games?
Mm-hmm.
So I've asked Chat GPT. Um, while we can't, I've had a good conversation with it here, right? While we can't count every single match or event that George Hamilton is covered, he once joked in his commentator in his when he's commentated on thousands of games and lost count of the stadiums he's worked in. Right, this is what ChatGPT has said. Okay,
Yeah.
they've said that you've said this. Okay, here are the number of major sporting events George Hamilton has covered. Let's see how correct it is or how good your memory is. Okay, so Olympic
Okay.
Games, you've already said how many?
11.
ChatGPT says 11 Olympic Games from
Oh, very good.
1980 through recent times. I don't know who's correct, you or the
Yeah.
computer. Okay. What was the
Yeah.
first one?
No, Moscow, 1980. Yeah. So that is correct.
Okay. Commentated at how many World Cups during your broadcasting career? That's FIFA Football World Cups.
Men, of course.
Men.
12.
According to ChatGPT, that is correct. I can't believe I'm testing you on your own life. But what I'm really doing is I'm testing ChatGPT.
Yeah.
Okay. How many UEFA European Championships men did you cover for RTE?
For RTE, I only covered the European Championship for RTE because BBC, when I was working for them in 1984, didn't send to France because there was no team from the UK in it. So England, Scotland, Wales, Northern Ireland failed to qualify for Euro 84, and BBC Radio didn't send. So I didn't do that one. So if the European Championship was in the same year as the Olympic Games, and I covered the European Championship in 2024, so as I covered the European Championship, the Olympic Games in 2024, that would suggest taking out 84 because BBC didn't send. For RTE, I've covered 10 European Championships.
Okay. According to ChatGPT, which has, it tells you the little article it brings it from. It has scraped this from The Sun. According to this, you've covered 12 European Championships. So,
what?
Therefore, ChatGPT, you need to get your homework done, right? And it says 35 global multi-sport events, Olympics, Champions League finals, Six Nations rugby tournaments, etc., etc. If you would like us to break down the year by year and the big events like the Rugby World Cups and the Champions League final, we can do that. No, we've got an entire podcast for that, ChatGPT. Thank you very much.
That's a good one. Yeah, they obviously took the lead from the World Cups and decided I must have done European Championships in parallel. But that was the way I started the Euros after my first World Cup, and I missed one Euro because it wasn't covered in the station I was working for.
George, we have I put this on the social media sites a couple of weeks ago, right? Well, over the last week or so.
I was wondering how you get questions when we haven't had a podcast yet, but that's very clever.
I stuck them up on the socials, right?
I'm most impressed.
I was just saying to the world that George Hamilton is one of the most accomplished. I'll read it verbatim. George Hamilton is one of the most accomplished sports broadcasters, according to ChatGPT. We're putting a Q&A section in the new podcast. Do you have a question for George, in brackets, or Connor? Stick it in the comments or email it to the show. It's there at fiacart.com, right? So we stuck that up on all the social media platforms, and we've got some really nice responses, actually.
All right.
Got some emails as well, which is fantastic. And thanks for using the email service.
That's wonderful.
And do you want me to pitch the first couple at you here?
Sure, absolutely.
Okay.
No homework done now, so this might work and it mightn't.
That's the whole point in this. That is the absolute whole point in this. Right. Okay. Can you ask George his most enjoyable non-football sporting memory? That comes in from DK137. Non-football sporting memory.
Yeah. Well, Sonia in Gothenburg was terrific. I still recall that. I used a word that I have no idea why I used it at the time because it doesn't belong in the commentary, but I said her performance had been authoritative. But I was so carried away with what she had just achieved in winning the World 5,000 meter championship. That was terrific. You said non-football. Can I use rugby? I mean, O'Driscoll in Paris was just sensational. And
Okay.
from a commentary point of view, there's one thing that gnaws in every commentator's mind is that there will be an aspect of something that you're describing or commenting on that you'll have missed. And one of the things that's very easy to miss is a hat trick, believe it or not, because if a lot else has been going on, it's not the principal thing that's swirling around in the old vortex there. And it could be the third goal goes in, and then it's only afterwards that was his third goal. So to be on top, I was in the zone so much that day because of the way Brian O'Driscoll was playing that there was no way I wasn't going to know it was a hat trick. And when he sided through the defense to get that third try, it was just one of those moments, as the man said, one of those really, really enjoyable moments. So I'd say Sonia and Brian O'Driscoll would be, and the Roars, of course.
Okay.
Followed on Kenny McCarthy get the gold in Tokyo.
Lee Penfold.
That's three. Beg your pardon. That's three.
That's fine. We've got an entire podcast. We can do this next week and the week after and the week after. This is an infinite space, George. Lee Penfold, 1982 on Instagram. Just search for It's Their Podcast on Instagram. What's your earliest memory behind a microphone? How did that shape how you approached commentary later? Great question, Lee.
Right. It's my first memory behind the microphone was as a 4 or 5 year old. Why? Because I cocked it up. Because it was a Christmas party on the radio. The people didn't have television back then. And this was a big deal. And it was in BBC in Belfast again. And I had been brought in to recite a little poem. And the deal was that they would be the sound effect of a cracker being pulled. And then I would introduce the next act on the show, children's radio. And so there was a bang of the cracker, and then I was to speak. And I froze. I couldn't remember the first line of my little poem. There was it was radio. I could have had a script in front of me, but they didn't give me a script. I had to learn the thing off. So that was over 7 decades ago, and it still burns in my head that I needed a prompt before I said, "The cracker that we pulled by hand. Now listen, I'll explain. 'Twas in it a percussion band that comes from fair Coleraine." That was my broadcasting debut. And I still remember those words because it went wrong.
7 decades later, and I have to say, George, I imagine it has improved over those 7 decades. Absolutely brilliant. Love that one. Lee.
But I haven't actually answered Lee's question, have I?
Well, I think you have. That's your earliest memory behind a microphone, and it also did answer how it shaped how you approach things later on in your career.
Well, that's very true. Yes.
I'm going to finish with this one. It's from Molly's Football World 2.0. We did say at the start of this is going to be like a positive space. What was the phrase we come up with? Positive platform.
Positive platform. It's there, the positive platform.
But I am going to have to ask you about something that's a little bit political here. And thank you to Molly for sending this in on Instagram. What was the political climate like during the 1978 World Cup in Argentina? Now, that was 2 years prior to you starting. Was that right?
No. That was my first World Cup. Argentina.
That was your first World Cup?
78. Yeah. There was Argentina was run by a military junta led by a general called Videla. And I went to Argentina not really knowing what to expect, but coming from Belfast, which wasn't exactly the happiest place at that time. And what I remember on arrival, they made a big effort because they were hosting the World Cup. And they did Soviet Union did it for the Olympics in the 80s, and no doubt they did it for the World Cup in Moscow in 2018. But anybody who was likely to cause trouble was somehow removed from circulation. And so Argentina was calm. And what struck me most about it was that the police didn't wear uniforms per se. Like policeman, a London bobby or a guard in Dublin, but they wore navy blue fatigues. They looked very smart, but they looked like soldiers as opposed to policemen. And that was the only aspect that struck me as being in any way kind of unusual about Argentina under this military government. But at no stage did we feel under any kind of threat. We were made most welcome. And on arrival in Mendoza, which is where I was based, nobody had heard of Mendoza at the time, but now everybody knows it because it's the heart of wine country in the foothills of the Andes. Went to the press center on the first day get the accreditation, and they had a choir there singing. And I remember the song, Buenos dias, periodistas, good day to the journalists, that they'd actually arranged this to make us all feel very, very welcome. And I hooked up with the Dutch because they were based in Mendoza and they were most welcoming too. But my memory of it is, believe it or not, blue skies, the snow on the Andes, a polo match in a winery with wine and cheese afterwards, all terribly, terribly civilized. So yes, there was a political situation going on there, but we never got a chance to experience any of the downside of the unpleasantness in Argentina at the time, because they'd made such an effort to make sure that the World Cup went off okay. And I was actually reminded of that when the news was on about what's going on in Mexico right now. And they're co-hosts of the World Cup. And Mexico was a difficult place in '86 when I was there for the World Cup, when it was moved from Colombia for security reasons. So, it's maybe a case of watch this space for the summertime. But Argentina, there was no, like, whatever went on, it never got near the football, and they made sure of that.
And not necessarily just Mexico. Let's bring America into the equation as well.
Well,
The way
indeed,
things have been going over the last while. Of all the things I didn't think that would appear in this first podcast would be conversations about a military junta. But we got there.
We covered all bases.
I literally covered all bases. We hope you have enjoyed episode 1 of It's There. We are going to do this. This will be available for you to listen to every Tuesday. It is wherever you get your podcast. The most important thing for us, the way in which we can get this done and we can keep doing this, is if you subscribe. If you subscribe to our social media platforms, that'd be great as well. Send in your questions. And coming up on Thursday, George, if you are listening to this as it drops, it is going to drop now. What's the official date today? The 24th. This is going to be up on the internet for years and years to come. But the podcast that will appear immediately after this one, George, is Ray Houghton.
Stuttgart 88, etc. And there's a lot of etc. there as well.
I didn't know where you were going. There was a big gap there. Little did I know you were getting yourself wound up to do your Houghton, right? So one more time.
Houghton!
Thank you for joining us on It's There, the new podcast with George Hamilton
and Connor Phillips. And wherever you get your podcasts, it's there.